cord to this computer. And then we're almost there. Welcome everybody to another amazing class of social social impact of music entrepreneurs. Y'all,
need some sleep, my friend.
Yeah, I need some sleep. As some of you know, I've been tasked with a new position of co-chair of business entrepreneurship and career planning, and it's just been nonstop. Also with 3 search committees happening, and so it's been from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. But anyways, welcome everybody to Social Impacts of Music Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dr. Ruiz, and today I am so unbelievably blessed to have literally, y'all, the preeminent scholar of arts entrepreneurship and arts entrepreneurship education, no other than Gary Beckman. Over 70 publications, and he's actually the first person to create in the nation an arts entrepreneurship minor and as well as a certificate, and he's just absolutely incredible. And his expertise deals with many different areas. Also an avid guitar player of different styles, and today he's going to talk about one of the niches that he just excels in, which deals with arts entrepreneurship ecologies. And so I think this is going to be really fascinating to hear from him and to learn. Please have your questions. This is really going to help steer, especially your research project or your philosophical paper or your unit presentations with greater depth as you aspire to learn about this field and see how it can implement or coincide with your aspiration of interest. So without further ado, please, emojis, everybody. Come on, awkward emojis. Gary Beckman. Woo! Take it away.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. That's very cool. Well, it's nice to see everybody. It's nice to see everybody. So I got to know. Where are the artists? Artists, musicians, dancers, sculptors. Who's doing what? Who's doing what? All right, come on, volunteer. Tell me your art. That's the fun part of what we do.
All right, Vita, what do you do?
I'm a dancer.
Oh, very cool. Modern or classical?
Modern.
Modern. Ooh, very good. Favorite choreographer?
I'm from a different country, so you probably have never heard of them.
That's okay.
Yeah, just come on.
So there's this one choreographer. Her name is Alla Tucheva, and she has a whole theater in Russia.
Really?
So I used to dance in her little studios.
Oh, very cool.
Thank you.
That's very neat. Well, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
That's very good. That's very cool. Okay, great. Who else?
All right, who else? Lauren, I know. Hey, Lauren and then Allison. Lauren, I know you're involved with television. Talk to us.
A little bit. I'm a photographer, so I kind of do that sort of realm of things, but not quite, I'm sure, as artsy as everyone else here.
Well, you never know. Photography is not exactly an easy thing. It's easy to sit there and point a camera, but it's a different thing to actually tell a story with a single picture.
Lauren, you've had some experience with the Emmys, right?
What?
Yes, I do. I work for the Suncoast chapter of the National Academy. So yeah,
Really?
a little bit of experience.
Yeah, what do you do there?
Wow.
I've been working with them since high school, but I sort of an internship, sort of the student opinion on the board and everything. So
Cool.
Awesome.
Wow.
Emily, what do you do? It's cutting off. Emily, she is a first violinist in the symphony orchestra.
First violin? Wow.
Yeah. So in the first violin section. Yeah, we've actually performed together at a big epic holiday concert at the Phillips Performing Arts Center. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Cool.
Come on, let's get 2 more musicians. or artists? What do y'all do? All right, Allison.
I'm a musician. I play piano, cello, and some guitar.
Cool. Who's your favorite composer?
Composer.
Fun.
Chopin.
Really? Ooh, very good. All the short stuff, huh? Short but complicated?
Yeah, like his nocturnes, the etudes. I
Yeah.
really like his etudes.
Yeah, some of that stuff is really, really good. I got to admit that for sure. Good for you. Good for you. Who else?
All right, cool. No worries, Emily. She says, sorry that my connection was bad. One more. Who else is involved in some aspect of the arts or digital arts, even if it's a side passion?
Yeah.
Come on, let's go.
Is anybody? No? All
Hannah
right.
Brown?
No? Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, let me just get started.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm nobody special, really. I'm just some guy. Really, the person who I am is a guitarist. I'm a metal guitarist. Okay, I know it doesn't look that way, but it's true. And I grew up with Slayer and all those guys, and and that was fun. I did a lot of prog metal and a lot of prog stuff as well, and I loved it. And then one day, I found myself. I had a daughter one day, and the cool thing about that was that wow. It's a trippy thing to actually hold your progeny for the first time. And what happened to me was I thought that it would be a great idea to be a musician and support my daughter. And I found out really quickly that I just didn't have the skills, I didn't have the knowledge to really do that in a way that I wanted to. I mean, I could do it, but I'd be touring and doing regional tours all the time, and all this other kind of happy stuff. And I just didn't think that for me, that it was really, the dad thing to do, because I really wanted to be with her. I wanted to be a big part of her life. So, so remarkably, also, it may not look like it. So I got this small electrical engineering degree, and that's how I fed her. Remarkably. So I got a little 2-year electrical engineering degree, and I was fixing Mac computers for a long time. Until one day, literally until one day, I decided that was just not the thing to do anymore. That even though I was feeding my daughter and we were in a great place, and everything was going good in school and all that, I realized that I wasn't really being true to myself. And that was a hard thing. And my hope is that if you guys encounter that you're not being true to yourself, that you really open up and accept I guess the best way to say it is the struggle of the question. Because all of a sudden, when you say, wow, I'm not really being myself, you have a choice to make. You can not be yourself or be yourself. So for me, I wasn't being myself. I was fixing Macs and making money and everything, and that was all great. But it was really rather uncool because I was an unhappy man, and it was actually starting to kind of like show up in my relationships and stuff. So, so I went back to school and did all this, and I thought for sure that I switched over from guitar to lute. So I was playing Renaissance lute, Renaissance and Baroque stuff. And Renaissance music was sort of like a big thing for me at the time. And I really dug it, and decided to do the musicology thing. And then I realized that the person who I really wanted to work with died in Venice during Carnival, and I wanted his job. And yeah, I know. Howard Mayer Brown. He's probably the best Renaissance musicologist ever. He was a great man and did a lot of really great things for my instrument. And when I realized that the entire job market in higher ed didn't want Renaissance musicologists, it was just like, God, what do I do now? It's like I got a daughter, and I managed to make things work, but I still needed to be true to myself. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was help my colleagues, and that's sort of what I do. And that's sort of who I am. Is I try to help as many people as I can. And I will now count you a little bit as some of the people I'd like to help. And the way that I did that in grad school was I went to my dean and I told him what was going on. And I said, well, I was kind of a semi-pro at the very least. And I was doing tours around the country and stuff like that. And I'm like, I think I've got something to say about, being entrepreneurial and at least music anyway. And he was a nice guy. So he let me start teaching in grad school when I was doing the PhD thing. And slowly, and wasn't even slowly, it was just sort of like this big explosion. Higher ed was ready for arts entrepreneurship. So there I was. And, I also had the background with which to write. So that's kind of like where I'm at. And I'm saying that just so that you guys have context. The reason why is because I'm a big believer in art is actually a contextual thing. We don't consume art, we don't produce art without context. And the other thing we don't do without context is understand ourselves. Because in essence, you can make a lot of really, really good arguments about your total life actually being reflected in the art that you do. You could, for example, be a first-year violinist, but the way that you move from E flat to G is a way that only you can do. I know you're not being trained to do it exactly that way, but or I should say, well, you're really being trained to do it one way, but in actuality, you're not. Everybody's doing it their own way. It's very, very subtle. And I would argue that, if you spend some time, you can probably hear that. Here's why. There's a concept, there's a word that social scientists use, and it's called the habitus. Habitus. And in the program that I design and direct here at NC State, we talk a lot about the habitus. My program is an art first program. We deal with art first, and then we deal with the entrepreneurship bit. One of the important things to understand about linking art and entrepreneurship is ourselves. So the habitus is defined by social scientists as the sum total of your human experience to the point of where you've understood the present. It's everything. It's everything that you are, who your parents were, who your brothers were.
Can you repeat that again?
It's basically the sum total of life experiences to the point of understanding the definition. So all of our experiences are completely different. So my experience 5 minutes ago was different than yours, not just because of geography, but time, age, the whole thing, experience. So even twins, identical twins, have different habituses. But this habitus, who we are, actually occurs in a field. Again, it's what the sociologist terms a field. So some of us here were born in the United States, some of us were born in Russia, some of us were born south of Mexico, some of us were born elsewhere. That's a part of our field that creates our habitus. So the cool thing about being a human being is that everybody, there's a trope that says everybody's unique. I agree with that. Thankfully, sociologists have proven it. We all really are. The way that we move from E flat to G on any instrument is literally, according to sociologists, it must be unique. It's defined within us and defined in our experiences. Now, being someone who wants to link the arts and being entrepreneurial, I'm a firm believer in that the only way that you can do that is through yourself and understanding yourself a little bit and understanding the context in which you exist. You're at the University of Florida, not the University of Texas at Austin. You would be a different person and you would move from E flat to G differently if you were being trained differently, if you were living in a different place, and if you were getting better salsa. I'm a big salsa fan. And thank goodness for San Antonio, because they taught me how to do that. So the cool thing about what we do is that even though we are told, and it's true, that, you know, our art's unique, blah, blah, and everything, wow, that's really great. You know, our identity structure is kind of like, you know, built into our art and it comes out all the time. The neat thing is that it's really true. But the better thing is that whatever choices you make, in your life is also dependent upon this, which means that you can make unique choices if you know the field that you're in. Pretty simple. So basically, we're creating identity based on what's happening to us, the decisions we make. Now, interestingly, entrepreneurs kind of do the same thing. They kind of have to, it's by definition. So I'll tell you what I noticed. I noticed that when I was doing a lot of touring and a lot of playing, I had a big, massive problem booking gigs. I had a big, massive problem booking gigs, and I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't. I asked everybody. Nobody had an answer. Well, it turns out that the reason why I never had an answer is because the people I was asking and myself, I never had a view of the field of where I was touring. In other words, I was not getting gigs and not getting callbacks and definitely not getting paid what we should have been paid. And I mean, we were breaking even, but that was it. The reason why is because I didn't understand how venues operated. In other words, I didn't understand the field of where I was trying to put myself. That's all. I didn't understand because I didn't know, 90% of everything that was there. I couldn't put it together. So I couldn't actually be the entrepreneurial musician I wanted to be because I certainly didn't understand myself. I didn't know that was my job. But also at the same time, I didn't know exactly where I was placed.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very profound what you're saying, and I know that the students really resonate with what you're saying because it's exactly where they're at right now, as the majority of them are freshmen with one sophomore. But I want the students to really understand this is one of the issues of just education as a whole, and why people like Gary Beckman is addressing this issue within the sector of arts entrepreneurship, and trying to bridge the gap between the business school and the art schools and finding a way for them to merge, because he has pinpointed as a sociologist, as a musicologist, what the commonalities are, which is exactly what he was talking about. And so many people, doesn't matter if you're a student or if you're a seasoned veteran, they oftentimes don't have as clear direction because they're not certain about the field and about themselves and their capacity and even their limitations. Just being a sense of understanding who they are and who they're not in order to be able to make informed, unique decisions. And isn't that really fascinating what Dr. Beckman just stated? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody here wants to contribute something that is distinguishable, that is unique. Sorry, carry on.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, so what we have is we have sort of this interesting idea of not only my experience, but experience of my peers. Okay, and I had bass players and everybody else and friends who were in different bands, et cetera, et cetera. And what kind of spurred me on to this idea was frankly the fact that people were extremely great musicians and were never getting paid. And seeing all the work that they did and that I did just wasn't fair. So I thought that it was time to look at entrepreneurship in the arts in a different way. So if I can share my screen, I'll show you what I came up with. Maybe I can share my screen. All right. Here it is. This is what I came up with, and this is what I teach my students. If you kind of put yourself sort of in the middle of kind of like looking down, I've sort of developed different fields or different aspects of looking at an arts venture. And this idea is really pretty simple. It's just basically an ecological system model. So if you know anything about ecological systems, like the ocean, you know that really the ocean really starts in the marshes, in the swamp marshes on shore, because that's the beginning of the food chain. And then it just goes on from there. And you know, and if you just know basic ideas of what an ecological system does, you know that if there's a lot of stuff in there and they're all related, and everybody kind of like has worked out the stasis thing, and there's always enough food for the fish, and then the sharks come in there, because if they're not there, then there's all sorts of disease and all that. This is exactly the same thing. So you can make these for anything, and I would urge you to. This is only one way of doing it. It's just my way. It's not the right way, I don't think. I think there's a million different ways to really think about this, but this definitely it's a model. It's just a model. So if you were an arts entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what kind of art you are. This model basically works on the American economic system. If you're a for-profit venture, you live in the for-profit ecology, and that would be right over here, where your art product is really what you do. And that product lives in a field as well that defines your business, and by extension, yourself. If you're on the nonprofit side of things, you live here. And there, you're all project-based and trying to round up as much money as you can to impact as many community members as you possibly can as well. But both of them are impacted by what happens on Wall Street. Because on the for-profit side, as I tell my students, the stock market is like a 4-year-old on crack. If it wants the crack, it'll make a very, very loud noise. And if it's satisfied and doesn't want any, it won't make much of a noise. Unfortunately, both a for-profit and a nonprofit arts venture have to respond to the 4-year-old. Because the 4-year-old for an arts for-profit venture actually speaks to the psychology of the market. In a nonprofit arts venture, most of the money that goes to nonprofit arts ventures in the United States are actually invested in Wall Street. So that 4-year-old on crack that lives in the broader economic ecological system is a very loud element. It's a loud fish in the ocean. But for me, one of the important things that I found is that a market lives in a specific geography. Even if you're doing stuff online, if a lot of my students make stuff to impact the production of art, guitar strings and different kinds of different weaves of dance tights to support ankles and knees, things like that. Their markets cluster across the country too. And it's always been important to me because, again, I wasn't good at booking gigs, at least early on. And in part because I didn't understand the geographical field or the geographical system that they were in. So, after a while, I take my students through a lot of gymnastics, and we can actually evaluate and analyze an arts venture in a number of different ways. What I will do is I'll show you what one of these ecologies looks like. Okay, here's the for-profit. Now, the interesting thing about an ecological system, especially the way that I teach it, is that it's not, it's not rigid. It moves like any ecological system, right? So like if the sharks go away, the question is what happens then? Sometimes there's an overabundance of sharks, for example, and what happens then? So with this specific ecology, the one that many arts for-profit ventures live in, This is very, very broad, very, very broad stuff. So, you know, if you're just doing wedding gigs, you know, as a musician or a DJ, this would probably work for you, probably not well, but you could actually create your own. That works better for you. And the idea is that if you just simply pay attention to the elements every month for about half a day, you can end up making better decisions about your venture. When you make better decisions about your venture, you're likely making better decisions for yourself and about yourself.
Okay, hold on. I'd like to
Yeah.
make this even more practical, because you basically just gave us a gem, these students, right? You know, they're here at the University of Florida, they're studying, they have big aspirations. And you said, if you just spend half a day looking and just kind of addressing, focusing these particular items, and yeah, obviously there are students here who are not you know, arts related in terms of like the vocation that they want to pursue, but they're passionate about this. So look at this model, and for those things that just observe those things that you might just substitute that might not necessarily be arts, but for the sake of this class, I think it's really fascinating, because half a day doesn't necessarily mean 12 hours, right? I mean, you just have to remove the amount of hours that you might generally sleep within a day, and then half of that time is the investment in which you're going to allot. So it's more of a time management thing. Okay, if you have, let's say you have 16 hours, how about 8? Or let's go real conservative. You have 6 hours in which you are investing yourself to address these particular things: education, researching trends that are happening within, you know, the field that you're wanting to get into, looking at the latest technologies, looking at the product development or how it's distributed in multimodal deliveries. Is there management involved? Is there a bureaucratic system in which you're working at? Like learning all of these different things, learning the legalities. Right there, you see entertainment lawyers and the marketing side, the promotional, all of that stuff. If you spend half of a day, which in actuality might even constitute as just 1/8 of a day, right? 24 hours, so just 3 hours. That would be really, really amazing. Or even 6 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Basically, I ask my students, or well, I impress upon my students that since they are in an art first program, the best thing they can do for their lives and for their ventures is to keep producing art. That's the most important thing. I mean, you're going to fail anyway if you stop producing art and just get an MBA. That doesn't really do a boatload. All it does is make your practice harder when you stop, when you realize that the MBA is still just not all of the solution. So I ask my students, if you spend half a day each month and just determine how the economy is doing for your venture and for your market, spend a little bit of time in your main ecological system, your field, this field, and just like you said, check out the trends, which is massively important for fashion designers, for example, and everything else. And besides, I love Banksy, and I always want to see what he's doing. Same thing on the art supplier side. You never know what new gear is coming out for your art form, for your business, that can actually increase your creativity and take it to new places. I mean, new guitars are dropping in February. They always do. So I always look. I've got too many, but God knows I need more. But maybe I can get from E flat to G in a different way, even though I don't understand E flat. But the idea is that there are ways for any arts entrepreneur to do what I would argue would be the right thing, and that is to continue to produce art, but still manage their business. You can't do it magically. You can't just get an MBA. You can't just magically wish that it would just take care of itself. Because when you do that, I would argue you are genuinely not honoring your habitus. You're not honoring yourself, and you're not honoring the previous experiences and decisions that were given to you and that you made, whether they all be good or bad. I think it's really, I think it's really important that, and something that we tend to miss in arts entrepreneurship education, because it's a new field, right? So we kind of like don't know what to say sometimes. But what I've noticed in my students is this, is that once they sort of like really interrogate their habitus and their fields in the past and where they are presently, it tends to help them understand their identity. It doesn't create their identity, but it helps them understand their identity and make sure that they can make the best decisions possible because they understand themselves in a way that is not just singular, that everybody that they meet, every little job that they have at the coffee shop, every person that they meet at that job, every teacher that they choose to be their studio teacher has made a difference in their life. And that if any one of those decisions changes, then in fact, they change. Therefore, if you're not true to yourself and if you're not keeping your art up and doing what you are passionate about, if you're not doing that, you're not being true to yourself, and your habitus is going to change. You're not going to be happy, and you're not going to be making good decisions for yourself. If you're not spending that 4 hours a month on your business and making decisions about your business, I don't think that you're really honoring yourself. Because if it means something to you, then you're going to treat it with respect. You're going to honor it. You're going to feed it. And everything like that. You're going to care about it. And it's kind of like having a pet, I guess. At some level, you're going to walk your dog, otherwise there's consequences, right? New floors is what's going to happen. The same thing with cats, right? You can have as many cats as you want, but someone's got to clean out the box, otherwise there's a consequence. So what I would urge you guys to do, totally, I would urge you guys to really interrogate where you are right now. Really, just interrogate where you are. And I mean, and I don't say question, I mean interrogate, ask yourselves the questions. Would I be in a different spot if something in the past happened? Yeah, probably. Would you be a different person? Yes. And then extend the interrogation to your art form. Would I get from E flat to G differently if I'd gone to school in a different place? Likely yes. You can extend the interrogation to the future. You can say, if I want to be an arts entrepreneur, whether it be for-profit or nonprofit, the things that have happened to me in the past have affected me in the present, which means that I can make an informed decision about the future, which means that ultimately you are in control of your life, and you are also in control of your venture. You get to make the decisions. There's a lot of power in that. Just like art has an awful lot of power. After all, for those who are not artists and musicians or whatever, the people who consume what we do have no clue why, because they don't, and they're probably not supposed to. But what we have changes their physical body chemistry. And we know that for a fact. That's an empirical fact. We can change the way that their brains develop, the way that their brains work. You can change the way that their bodies react to things. We're virtual demigods, people. We are. We have a boatload of power. Just by holding the art in one hand, we have power, and holding ourselves in the other and interrogating. We can say, hey man, we can change the world if we want. I know that sounds big. Sure, it's a big potential, right? And it's, only a few of us will do that. But I would urge you to understand and interrogate the power that you have, the power that the art that you are creating has, or the thing that isn't even art has. How many people can you really impact? What social good can you do? Your past has defined a little bit of what you can do. I will say one last thing before I close. Dr. Ruiz was really, really kind, and he shared with me a little bit of what this class is. And what I thought was really, really great was how open everything was with regards to community impact. So for me, the community that I've always wanted to impact but have never had the opportunity to do, which I hope maybe I can do soon, is actually the indigenous community here in the States. And one of the reasons why is because I grew up with a few of them in upstate New York. I'm not sure if anybody's from New York, but if you're from upstate New York, it's the Iroquois Nation is still remembered, shall we say. And one of the great things about being there was that the Mohawk tribe would consistently shut down roads to make sure that they could draw attention to what the indigenous community in New York was going through. Now, I really want to help those guys out because they helped me out in the past when I was little. They're really, really great people. I love the culture. It's just a tremendous thing. I have a lot of respect for it. And I know the way that I can help them. I know that I can interrogate myself and understand my habits. I know that I can interrogate the fields that I live in, that I've been in. I can also project in the future a little bit. I can say, well, if I have a habitist, everyone else does. If I have a field and I live in a bunch of fields like we all do, then that means that maybe my fields can hopefully intersect and help that community as well, get their message out.
Could I interject? All right, so this is really fascinating class, because what Gary Beckman, what he's saying, that he can look into the future a little bit, that's something that we all need to be able to do. We need to be able to have vision. Vision is to be able to foresee yourself in the particular context in which you're in the future. That's something that music entrepreneurs, that arts entrepreneurs have to have, because they're not handed with all the gigs and all the money in the world. What's the first to go when the economy goes bad? It's the arts. You see, and that's one of the main, or at least I should say, fundamental things that we understand. I mean, we're so passionate about the arts here, each and every one of us. That's what we're taking this class. And we're passionate about music, but we know that music is always, along with the arts, like when education goes bad or when society goes bad, it's just like, you know what, no more gigs. And they always blame it on the next thing. And so music entrepreneurs, for the sake of this class, and arts entrepreneurs in general, they don't have it easy. And even the success stories that you see, let's call them the more famous ones, the A-list ones, the bigger names. I mean, even the ones that you have presented on, the bands that you like, the artists that you like, the corporations that you are into, nobody just gave them a basket with all the keys to the city. And so every single one of them had to figure out a unique way that would basically say, hello, I'm here. Give me an opportunity because I know that I can help. You see? So Gary's talking about him wanting to help out a particular community of people that was impactful to him at a particular time in his life. Now, the doors are not necessarily going to open up just like that, just because he cares. And he's got to figure out a way to do that, which will actually be my next question. What's one example that you might go about doing so? But one thing that I want y'all to think about is, even in your assignments tab, you'll see one of your optional assignments is the business plan. And in the business plan, there's a whole section right there for what is your vision. So start imagining, start visioning yourself, because if you can actually see it, then you can believe it. You see what I'm saying? You can have the evidence, even if it hasn't manifested in the physical realm, because it has been made known to you, and you can create it. Then that's why we are at a research university, y'all, because we have to be able to exercise that creative ingenuity that all of us have. It's just that some of us might be impinged because of a variety of different situations. Maybe it's our upbringing, or, low self-efficacy for whatever reason. But in this class, like, I want y'all to take the opportunity to really imagine the capabilities of who you can be, because every single one of you are extraordinary. Even though I haven't seen every single one of you, because y'all don't like to put your cameras on. That's okay. Anyways, going back to Gary, might you be able to give us just a little side note of how you might address that particular tribe with music or with the arts?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's quickly becoming my favorite subject. First, I would have to interrogate the field that I'm in with them. So that means that I would have to understand historically what happened to that tribe. I would have.
So you need context. You need context. And it goes back to the initial premise of what Dr. Gary Beckman said, which is context is king. Art is contextual.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I would need to know their historical context. I would also have to understand the context of what they've experienced since Europeans got onto this continent. And also at the same time, I would also have to negotiate my empathy towards this. In other words, why am I really doing it anyway?
Very powerful what you're saying there.
That's the thing.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, because a couple presentations ago, one of the things that I spoke with in this class dealt with this concept of vanity metrics. Vanity metrics. So, and that's something that, we all deal with, because as entrepreneurs, especially in the digital age, content creation, macro content on social media and digital platforms. So even the opportunities that might be granted to artists will be determined essentially on what is vanity metrics, because it's how many views did you have on your music video? Did you have millions? That maybe we can consider to having you perform at this theater because you are impactful. Nothing to take away from quantitative metrics and things like that. Side note, if you saw the promo, Gary Beckman happens to have the highest H factor impact. So he is the highest impact scholar in this field. But I dare to say that not even that defines your impact. Even if you didn't have that, the quality of your work and the essence of your work, the opportunity should still be open to you. Many opportunities might open up one way or another avenue. But vanity is I feel like it's a big struggle, especially for artists, because we have so much to express. We want to be able to connect with people. Oftentimes artists innately, I would posit that they're not necessarily as egocentric, but have to become in a way. And sometimes it could consume, the humility that an artist initially has, because an artist is vulnerable, wants to share with people. However, because of the lack of opportunities, they have to, kind of put on some tough skin. And sometimes if you don't put it in check, you might get consumed with a wrong intention, or intention that might not necessarily be as fruitful or produce longevity, because it is surface level, it is superficial. And so I just wanted to add to that in terms of what Gary said with intent of why he's doing it.
Absolutely. And you actually hit the nail on the head with regards to one of the big problems with the arts nonprofits when they approach the communities that they want to serve, where all of a sudden it's either, where they want to develop a project that's sort of like a celebrity drop-in. It's a one-time thing. It won't be sustained. And the metrics are someone else's metrics. It's not the community's metrics. One of the first things I would do after my own education is simply, if I, had the privilege of speaking to that tribe, I would simply say, I want to help. I don't know how, but I need you guys to teach me. I've gone as far as I can. So just teach me about everything. And, if I can help, great. If I can't, then that's fine too. But just know that someone cared. I think that for many communities, I think it's basically the same. I mean, should we treat them with respect? I think that should be the first thing that we do. And for me, it would be about doing my due diligence about history. That's where I'm at. I know a little bit about the music, and that's sort of it. After that, they have to help me help them. Because after all, if the situation were reversed, I wouldn't want some old white guy to be coming into your house saying, I know what's good for you. Because I'm not in their field. I don't have their habitus. I only have my own. The fields that I've experienced are not their fields. It's the respect thing, I would argue. If you're going to help a community, you have to respect them first, in my humble opinion. And besides, I've seen grants go that way.
Awesome. Are there any questions right now? And it could relate, thanks, Lauren. It could relate to arts entrepreneurship, could relate to sociology, could relate to identity. Maybe first of all, preface that. How many of you were blessed by this presentation? Emojis. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, they're coming in. Awesome. So what questions might we have? All right, Allison, go ahead and ask the question.
Is changing the way one stays true to themselves also part of their habitus?
Ooh, that could be a massively profound question. Could you say it one more time?
Is changing the way one stays true to themselves also part of their habitus?
Yes, absolutely. That's sort of the cool thing about this whole idea that the sociologists have come up with. And in many respects is reflected in that model that I was showing you that I teach my students. The cool thing is that a habitus should not be static. When the field changes, the habitus should likely change. So I'll give you 2 examples. Let me give you a life example. If you lose a pet is in your domestic field. If you lose a pet, that changes your habitus. Your habitus was built on the life and relationship that you had with that pet. If you're an arts entrepreneur, let's say you're more in the for-profit thing, and in the for-profit side of things. If the field of economics changes, it's going to change your habitus. The question is what are you going to do with it? It is at that point where the relationship between the habitus and the field, there is something called a decision that needs to be made. You can choose to react to the change, or you can choose not to. Same thing with the pet, right? You can choose to not react to losing the pet, or you can choose to react to it in the way that your habitus tells you and what your identity tells you, how you negotiate all that. So yes, that is the point, actually. A habitus should not be static. And an arts venture shouldn't be static either. I mean, look what I mean, I'll give you a great example. Look at what's happening to Peloton right now. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but Peloton is really sort of the way to go. Peloton was a home, or is a home gym system, right? And so during the whole COVID thing, I mean, they couldn't make them fast enough, and now it's a massive problem because now the COVID thing is, I guess, hopefully easing off, and now everybody's going back to the gym, and nobody's buying home exercise equipment. And what did they do 2 days ago? They got rid of their CEO. So the field of where Peloton is changing. COVID is changing that element in that field. So now they have a decision to make. Do they continue to make home exercise equipment? No, their decision was to fire the CEO. I don't know what that does to their happiness, but they made a decision, and that's the link between the two.
But then on the contrary, you have a company like Zoom that came through, had enough links,
Right?
you know, had
Yeah.
enough links, and look at how it's changed virtually the way we communicate, the way we teach, the way we engage in meetings, the way we innovate. I mean, the way even we perform. I mean, there's performances, there's all kinds of innovation that is happening in this digital world.
Right.
And so this kind of brings back to the bigger concept of you know, the ecologies. You know, maybe you might respond to that statement that I just mentioned. And
Yeah. That's sort of the interesting thing about ecological systems. I mean, the whole habitus and field thing is that if you envision life like that, it becomes a very different way to live a life. When all of a sudden, all of a sudden it's Zoom, right? So that's a big element in our shared field. Zoom happened because of COVID. In the shared field that we live in as an ecological system, we had an intruder, and it happened to be a pandemic. What happened? The Zoom folks said, well, wait a minute, we can probably leverage this because everybody's going to be inside anyway. And they did it wonderfully. And to me, on the art side of things, especially on the music side, I think I mentioned this to you before, but I'll say it again. For the students, I'm surprised that Stage It did not go public with this, because Stage It is basically, it's a way for musicians and artists, comedians, whatever, to basically have one-on-one sort of gigs with people who pay, which is a great idea. And it never worked. It just didn't work. And one of the reasons and the lessons that we learned from that, all of our collective artistic habitus has changed because of that. And that is, we've learned something really important. And now we have to make a decision about it. And that is that audiences like their anonymity. They don't want to be one-on-one with, some artist. That's the weird thing. Everybody, I mean, I certainly didn't see it. I was ready for those guys to go public and retire, man.
But you notice this is one thing that we have observed, is that in this concept of social impact of music entrepreneurs, so many of the examples of initiatives that address, let's say, hunger for Africa or relief for Haiti, et cetera, happen to be done through collaborations with artists, with their music videos and with their singles, and then they promote that and put that to also be able to bring together greater respective communities that they particularly influence. But it's almost like artists, I basically concur with what you're saying. It's easier for us to be able to just partner up with different people, because then we feel a sense of more safer, I would say, because we know that in our profession, musicians and artists, it's not safe just to put ourselves out there. We're always putting ourselves in a position of scrutiny.
Yes.
Always. And so when we're engaging into another level of impact, which is more societal, let's say, rather than community, local, where we're just trying to provide some entertainment, some relief, playing on the side of a restaurant. But now we're trying to, fix a problem that a government couldn't fix. in another country
That's a
or even in
great
this
point.
country. We have to galvanize more, more power that different people have, and that's the reason why you have songs like "We Are the World,"
Right.
"We Are the Children," right? And you had all these different artists, and they raised $64 million. Forget the Grammy that they won. Forget the platinum that they got. They ended up getting $64 million for that particular thing, America for Africa, and just to feed the hungry, and that is something that I think is just really phenomenal about artists. I never really thought about that until you mentioned it. It's that so often is the case that, we are vulnerable, that we're so courageous in wanting just to put ourselves out there to help. But
That's the thing. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it really requires a team. It really, at bigger levels, we maybe innately, without even thinking about it, because most artists don't even think about how they are being entrepreneurial. That's why there's people like you. That's why there's people like me that are trying to kind of like shed this to light in different ways, whether it's through scholarship or pragmatism or an intersectionality of the two, So yeah, no, this is great.
No, I'm really, really glad that that you're really highlighting the power of our own vulnerability as artists, because it's a public vulnerability, and for some reason, I mean, find me another profession where public vulnerability is a requirement for their job.
Yeah, I mean, even public speaking is an art, so that constitutes.
Right. That's the thing. That's the thing. We are. I mean, I use the word interrogate a lot because I think that, I mean, it's the 21st century. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't think we ask enough questions about ourselves, and I don't think, in many respects, that we're taught to. As an artist, we are bloody courageous. And we collaborate anyway, because that's what we do. I mean, all the arts collaborate, but it's so unbelievably important, I think, to really understand that artists are unbelievably powerful and creative. Sure, that's fine, but they're courageous beyond belief. You get up there on the stage, and you play the solo, okay? And remember, and remember, you only have one shot at this. Right? You only have one shot, and everybody's going to remember. And now in the 21st century, most everybody is recording this thing. And if you mess up, it's going to be all over Instagram. Okay. It's going to be all over Instagram. And then everybody's going to either love you or hate you. That is a gamble. Like, I cannot even tell you.
Sure. No, it's true. I mean, I can give y'all a personal testimony. I'm commissioned now to write a piece for the Guitar Foundation of America, and I know that I can compose. I know I have that capacity, but they wanted a piece that can help inspire a particular social thing, and it's going to be performed by Nigerian guitarists, and so I'm doing my due diligence, just like what Gary described. I'm trying to find the empathy with these artists, and try to learn about their stories, and then come up with something that is supposed to, embody their story. Hopefully they will love it, and hopefully it will do due diligence to be able to advance even the field of guitar, classical guitar. But I've never even written a piece for guitar for this particular audience. So like, I accepted it. I got my first half of the commission, and it's due February 28th. And I'm ready. And I'm ready to I'm ready for the arrows. That's the thing. But I'm also, but I think, courage is one thing, but in expressing vulnerability in everything that you do, you become authentic. And if you go to your slides on the files tab, y'all, go to entrepreneurial suggestions for COVID-19, Gary, this is actually before the study that I'm working on. Just preliminary stuff, just suggestions that I noticed might not have even been addressed in the paper, but it basically has to do with, a lot of artists, they were wondering, with the influx of just so much media happening since everybody was creating, all these music videos and just even, I'm in my room and I'm playing a song, hey y'all, I'm quarantined right now. So much video footage that artists, at least the professional musicians, were asking. I noticed this in conversations, just like in online forums, should they be producing a lot of content, or should they produce less content but put an emphasis on the quality of their artistic content? However, my proposal was you need to do both, because the quantity will improve the insurability, the insurance of your fan base, the retention of your fan base, avoid the attrition. But the quality is also important, because you're competing with different people from art. But at the end of the day, what probably supersedes all of it is authenticity. And you can't be authentic if you are not vulnerable, which is, I'm trying to piggyback, or just at least, add on to what Dr. Beckman was saying. And isn't that what we want, right? The etymology of the word authenticity is of undisputed origin. How many of you would want that when you say something, or when you put something out there in your vulnerability and in your courage, that at the very least, somebody might not even like your art, but say, this person is of undisputed origin, knows exactly who they are. And in your vulnerability and courage, you can then develop greater self-efficacy and greater self-identity, actualization, to be more secure in who you are, so that you can express purpose, which is an external expression, and then be able to navigate that through polymath roles as an artist, entrepreneur, booking agent, consultant, negotiator, all of the different things that you want to do. I'm done. Sorry. Just, you got me inspired. That's what happens when you get the best of the best to come, just throw a little nugget.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. It's like, I could not agree more. And actually, my students read a book by Pine and Gilmore called Authenticity. If you don't read that book, you can't be a really good arts entrepreneur. I say this because in one of my classes we do arts consultations for existing arts businesses. And one of the ones that we're doing this semester actually was an alum of the program. She's got a video business in Blacksburg, Virginia, and she loves that book, and you can tell that she is succeeding and employing now 9 people because she read that book and she interrogated and did, she thought about it. She interrogated herself, her role, what she does as a business, what she does as a videographer, where she is geographically in the middle of nowhere, Western Virginia. And that is Blacksburg is the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. We have one more question. Omar, basically, he asks, what do you suggest for someone who does not have a specific artistic practice or artistic identity? I could argue, Omar, that you do have an artistic identity, but for the sake of the question, to start interrogating themselves habitually and situation in order to become to come to a better understanding of themselves and their venture. So basically, what do you suggest to someone who does not have a specific artistic practice or identity, or how to interrogate themselves habitually? You've discussed it, but I'm wondering maybe if you package it just differently for somebody who doesn't think that they have an artistic identity, but wants to have a better understanding of themselves and the venture that they do want to pursue. Thank you for the question, Omar.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Many people don't think that they're artistic. I get that. I can't draw I couldn't draw to save my life. I can't, it doesn't. And I don't say that my lack of technical skills keeps me from being an artist. Now, I'm a musician, so, obviously everything is going to go over there. What I will say, to use me as sort of like a metaphor, I call myself an artist, but I can't draw. I'm a musician and that's it. A good friend of mine, Jim Hart, and I wrote an article about the differences between arts and non-arts entrepreneurs. And the premise of this, Omar, I think might help. The power of art really lies in aesthetics. In other words, what's beautiful. Okay, that's all. That's all aesthetics really means, in a 19th century way, Western 19th century way. Beauty. So even though my pencil scribblings are not beautiful, according to me, even though they're not beautiful, this does not mean that they're, I'm going to use a double negative. This doesn't mean that other things that I do in my life are not beautiful. So in that paper, we argued that aesthetics is everywhere. Beauty is everywhere. And that what we do as human beings is we create it, sure, but we also desire it. So I would say that you may not think that you're an artist necessarily. You may not think that, but at the same time, the stuff that you do because of your habitus has to be a little bit beautiful. A little bit. One of the reasons why is because human beings theoretically create beauty, and only theoretically human beings can also discern what beauty is. Beauty is everywhere, and we need it. The human mind needs it. It needs to have something pretty. Don't know why. However we define it. And since everybody has different habitus, we can create different beauty. Sometimes people will get it, and sometimes people won't. But if we judge, and I think this is the big deal, if we judge our beauty, there's a difference between interrogating and judging. We can interrogate our beauty, that's fine. We can interrogate the beauty that we produce. Judging it's a different thing. Leave that for others. You can interrogate it, but don't judge it. But whatever you have, you need to accept what you have, because there's got to be a little bit of beauty in there. There has to be. That's what we do as human beings, genetically.
Amazing. Well, everybody, put your emojis on. Give a round of applause for Dr. Gary Beckman. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. A lot of awesome things covered. I'm sure in next class they'll get out of their shell and have all these follow-up questions for me, but we really appreciate having you here. And just in case, was there any other question that we might have missed? All right, cool. Well, take care, everybody. In the announcements tab, I have posted our previous guest, Dr. Sylvie Choulet, the flamenco guitarist, that video. I'm still working on Nina A's presentation from several weeks ago, but it was so long and I have to kind of edit some aspects about it and then upload it. So that will be a thing, and then I'll upload this as well. But have a great week and make sure that you complete your Unit 2 project. And that'll be this Friday at 11:59 p.m. Take care. If you have any questions, just reach out. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. Nice meeting everybody. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.